Welcome, everyone. Actually filled out quite nicely. We have an amazing panel. Last panel before we reconvene in the big sort of meeting room. We have some amazing speakers on stage, and we're going to be talking about non-linear sort of customer journeys. We have a couple of different angles and perspectives here, and what I mean with that is it's really from a B2C perspective, B2B perspective. We have Zaylab represented, so kind of like a partner perspective in there as well. So it should be really good, and we'll just get cracking. So how about we do a quick round of introductions? Tell us who you work for, your role, kind of like size, company.
What's happening? Yeah, exactly. So I guess I'm closest, so I'll kick it off. Jared Shaner, it's been like a homecoming. I've seen so many friends at this conference, so excited. Out of introduction, I lead our strategic accounts at Zaylab, a primarily B2B focused consultancy. So helping people through what should I do next? How do I open up new channels, direct consumer, omni, B2B? So I describe myself as making sure that we make the right recommendations and we keep those customers happy, especially with our friends at Commerce.
Hey everybody, Chris Baltuznik. I am the Director of Digital Experience and E-commerce for Vitamix. So basically, fancy title of saying I sell blenders on the internet, right? So previous to Vitamix, I've been there about a year. I was at Owens Corning Roofing and Insulation to blenders, so a little bit of a seamless transition there, but essentially I'm developing digital strategy, we're understanding the customer journeys and really building the omni-channel experience around that.
Hi everyone, my name's Zoe. I am Head of Digital Customer Experience at Laser Clinics Group. If you're not familiar with Laser Clinics Group, we are a medical aesthetic clinic chain. It's a franchise network. It was born in Australia, but it's now in 4 key global markets. So we're in Australia, New Zealand, UK, and Canada. And we operate in what you would call a medical aesthetic environment. So we have 3 key categories within our business. It's not traditional e-commerce, it's actually service-based business. So we have laser hair removal, skin treatments, and then we also have cosmetic injectable treatments. So that third category itself is highly regulated and has different compliance regs across all 4 markets. And we recently went on a big digital transformation. We've migrated from a monolithic PaaS to a headless SaaS. So that's where we are today. We're 6 months on, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. We'll just stay with you. So question goes obviously to all of you in terms of like the session is called Beyond the Funnel, non-linear sort of buying journeys. For you as it relates to kind of like both the product and the services space, but also the different personas that you're serving, what does a linear or non-linear like journey look like, and where do things break down?
Yeah, so I guess if we look at where we were and where we've moved to, when we're on this monolithic environment, we had 2 very discrete and linear journeys. You could either come in and you could book your treatment, or you could pre-purchase a prepaid. And we didn't do that intentionally. It was just the way in which the ecosystem was built. We built first to book, and then later on we said, hey, let's avail the ability to purchase treatments to our clients. So when we embarked on the digital transformation, we knew that we had to change, because we knew that no one comes in with the sort of discrete objective in mind. But one thing that was really important for us is we wanted to validate our theories before we actually built the ecosystem. So what that looked like for us was engaging not only with the franchise network, our first customer, but then the end user. So how we approached it, we started with formal research with Bain. We had desktop research, we had franchise roundtables. We then moved into a phase of qual. Then we moved on to quant, and then we discovered a lot as we went through that process. And it was really important that we cascaded through all of those elements, because if we stopped at one of those earlier stages, we probably would have gone down the wrong pathway. So we'll give you an example. When we engaged with our first round of desktop research, the findings that really came back with 2 key things. Hey, here's the point in your funnel that the users are dropping out. Great, that was an excellent insight. But then second of all, they were sort of saying, hey, there's too many steps in this process. You need to condense these steps down. And e-commerce best practice, you want 3 to 4 clicks and then the user can book. So when we really distilled that down, we looked at it and we kind of challenged that narrative, because some of those questions that we were asking were really important for the end client experience. So I could have reduced certain steps in that booking flow and had a faster on-site booking experience, but I might not have asked the right question around what's your skin tone, how does your skin respond to sun. All those questions are really important to make sure the right machine is booked in the right room and the right therapist is available to treat that client. So we took those little nuggets and we moved on, and then how we really validated was we reached out and we did qual, and in that qual we did deep learning and discovery and asked exploratory questions. And we sought user groups across our own category and then our competitors' category. And we had prototypes that we really challenged within that. So we sought those prototypes, we tested them with those users, and then that helped us to learn, okay, this is what's going to work. We took the winning variants and we moved them into the design phase. And we ended up with, I guess, a semi-linear journey. The user can still enter in a book or a buy journey, but then we've got a merge scenario where they can book and buy together, and we've crafted many different points they can come in and out. And important, we've got offline data that feeds back onto the online experience, so we don't have to ask as many questions.
Awesome, that's phenomenal. Chris, on to you. You're blending B2C and B2B, no pun intended, but Germans are very highly funny, so I need to take my shots here. So from a B2C, B2B perspective, how are you serving kind of like the recreational home cooks, but also kind of like your B2B personas and audience and kind of like the professional users of your products?
Yeah, I might actually scale back to when I was at Owens Corning, just because it's a lot more disruptive, making it a lot more interesting than the home chef route, who is super boring. So don't tell myself that. But I guess really, originally the journey was super linear for roofing and insulation. It was manufacturer to distributor to contractor to the end consumer. And it was easy. That's how it's been done for years and years and years. However, that was changing. So with change, you had to evolve. Right? So when I say the change, it was the contractors who were buying, but they now wanted to buy in convenience. They wanted it's ease of doing business, things like that. They were accustomed to the Amazon business of 2-day shipping or job site delivery, things like that, and they weren't necessarily getting that from the distributors. So you saw a lot more Amazon buying. You saw a lot more buy online and pick up in store buying. So things like that was able to kind of change the path in which they had normally bought, so changing the buyer behavior. In addition, we saw the customer change. So after COVID, we saw the rise of the DIYer, the weekend warrior, right? So that person, even though it's roofing and insulation, wanted to research and be educated on how they can lay their own insulation or build their own roof, which was crazy, but they did it. So not only do you have a different customer behavior, but you have a different buying pattern. So based on that, again, the path needed to be changed. So if you're asking where it broke or where it was going to break, it broke by the manufacturer still looking at the journey as linear and still looking at the customer as fixed. So really at the end of the day, if you're still going to look at the journey in a straight line, you're going to be catering to a customer that doesn't exist anymore.
Interesting. And Jared, what about you? Like, you have the benefit of seeing multiple customers that you're advising. What's your idea?
Yeah, to avoid the yes and, I think both my panelists had great points. But ultimately, I think what Chris has talked about, and I challenge him a little bit on the home chef as well, is we think about this customer lens, right? And we approach all projects, remove the technology. You got to meet your customer where they're at. So especially when we've seen sort of, we'll call it the second golden age of e-commerce. There was COVID where, David started attacking Goliath. I got to be part of that, where traditional large CPGs were challenged by new skincare, new, vitamin and whey protein companies. A lot of my B2B colleagues sort of took that same linear path, which is maybe the 3-click to checkout, which is what is the path to purchase, versus when we think about B2B, whether someone is trying to find a knowledge base, whether that's a weekend warrior or someone else understanding which lumber company to purchase them from. We have to meet them, whether it's in discovery, whether it's in consideration, which is the quickest path to the right product, or even the quick reordering. So the main thing here is making sure the technology fits where the customer is at, being pliable and not trying to, in our opinion, and my colleagues have had to hear me say this more than they care to enjoy, is B2B is not direct consumer. And I would argue that today, direct consumer needs to start taking some of the cues from B2B, where DTC destinations become destinations for people to learn, to become part of the brand. I have this sweater people have been commenting on, to have a little bit of soul in what they're doing, whether we're selling skincare or we're selling, industrial hardware products.
Okay, back to you, Zoe. Kind of like when I think of laser treatments, medical kind of like treatments, cosmetic injections, obviously there's a lot of trust involved in that, and it's not only kind of like a one and done kind of like transaction, multiple months. I speak from experience, as everybody can tell. Like how did you design that flow, and how did you build that digital experience, like both from a trust building perspective, but also from kind of like this just transactional experience?
Yeah, so I would say the qualitative analysis that we did was hugely insightful, as well as the significant pain points that we'd established from our painted door, from our A/B testing, and then from the Bain research that we did. And what we learned from doing that was there were a few key barriers that our clients had, where they didn't understand the treatments that they were booking, and that's why they were dropping out of the funnel, or the price was confusing and they couldn't quite understand what was it that they were looking to solve. So that's why we designed those different prototypes and we tested it with our market. And importantly, when you think of your customer, and I was saying this to the team before, the customer isn't just the end user, it's also your clinic network as well. So it was really important for us that we understood the friction points in clinic as well as at the end user, because that's where you really unlocked all of the underlying issues. So a good example is, in that design process, we knew that clients were confused about, well, what treatment do I book? So we said, how do you want to learn more about your treatments? Do you want it to be graphically displayed, or do you want to have content? And they wanted both, but it was about how to serve both. And the winning design was serve imagery, but make sure that you have that written content to explain the treatment. And then there was a whole array of other research that had to be delved into to make sure, okay, great, we're going to show you an image of this body area that we're going to laser your hair off. We had to make sure those images were, meeting every different client's perception of how they feel accepted when they walk into the clinic as well. So there was iterations on, is the image correct from a technical S&OP standard? Do I feel like I actually align with that image? And does that help break down that communication barrier of what that treatment's going to deliver? And I can assure you our network was very forward in helping us to create that image, or images, I should say. And we've had really excellent feedback, been in market for 6 months now, and then less friction in the client buying and booking process.
I gotcha. Chris, I think you're sitting kind of at a very complex, kind of like multi-channel, I guess, situation, buying journey. You have all these premium retailers that resell you. You have a D2C side. You have your kind of like more professional buyers. How do you deal with, I guess, serving customers the right information when they discover you on like different, maybe even physical sites, but also how do you design for the different experiences? Maybe even Amazon, like how do you design that?
I don't know. You got any ideas? It's hard. No, so I think where brands get it wrong is they try to develop a channel strategy that's really independent of the bigger picture. So it's really looking at it as like an omni-channel perspective. I know we've all heard that word. It's a buzzword these days, but it really does have meaning. So we have to be able to focus on the consumer as we build that quote-unquote channel strategy. And I would argue, at least for our side of the business, in blending, that the B2B and B2C consumer are blending together. And did I get any laughs on that? Oh man, tough crowd. And I was up all night coming up with that. Okay, where was I? So I'll give you an example. I was in LA recently, and I went to Erewhon. Has there anyone been to Erewhon before?
Can't afford it.
Yeah. Did you have a $30 to $40 smoothie? Yeah. Okay. Well, I can confidently say that when I walked into Erewhon, I noticed that they had Vitamix blenders, so I contributed to that. So is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know. But I didn't know that they use Vitamix blenders, so it was interesting. Now, it's not odd to walk into a restaurant, a shop, something like that, and see a Vitamix blender. But what was unique in this situation is that they were using a specific product that is a consumer product that we only sell on Amazon. So there was that idea that whoever was procuring at Erewhon, they bought how they wanted to buy. They didn't go through the traditional B2B channels where they went through our procurement, they went through distribution, and then they just said, I like buying on Amazon, so I'm gonna buy on Amazon. And I wouldn't recommend that because our products for B2C aren't made for B2B, but they're Erewhon, so what am I gonna say? But there's that idea that there's this process that's linear that they're supposed to be buying through that they clearly just bought with convenience on how they're used to buying. And that's why we're seeing a lot of B2B brands out there. They are launching on Amazon Business, and they're scaling because they know their consumer is shopping there.
Okay, awesome. Jared, I think in the B2B space, a lot of manufacturers, distributors kind of like mistaken going digital with taking the existing sales process online and effectively replicating that. What's the difference between kind of like doing that or digitizing the funnel or building out the funnel that would actually serve the buyers that they need to serve?
So first of all, let me put the line in the sand. The robots are not stealing your jobs, sales reps. No, this is really how most of these conversations start. I've talked to a lot of B2B leaders around lack of adoption. And so one of the things that we've been trying to flip is that ultimately, whether it's commerce or the connected technology and all the tissues, these are digital tools. Same way that a lot of us are probably thinking about AI in our day-to-day jobs. They're there to help us supercharge. But at the end of the day, I meet customers all the time where their target customers, they want to call up Chris or Mike because they've been working with them for the last decade. Their dad's dad worked with Mike. But they don't want to have to wait for Mike to wake up from his nap or his marathon, as I learned. Now I'm quite embarrassed. So they want to be able to reach out at that time. They want to be able to reorder based upon that human interaction they had, that highly bespoke product recommendation or the custom pricing or quote. And sometimes I think that's probably where we as well see some of our customers losing traction to Amazon and other channels because it's just so much damn easier. And that's where we're sort of trying to shift is while you still need the human element, try to meet once again the customer where they're at, quick reordering, quick quoting, start the process, and really empower the sales teams to have these tools and most importantly trust them so that they evangelize them to the end customers.
Awesome. Zoe, back to you. You're running about 200 clinics. You're running, as you said, you kind of like grew into 4 really, really powerful regions. Obviously, we're talking staff, we're talking information, we're talking specific products, availability. How do you blend, no pun intended again, How do you balance, I guess, the operational limitations, availabilities, and kind of like that digital experience?
Yeah, it's actually quite challenging. So I think one of the key things is the feedback loop is vital. We are serving a network of 200 clinics. It has clinic managers. There's thousands of therapists in our network, cosmetic registered nurses. So the feedback loop around what's working from a systems integration standpoint is really valuable for us to know. Do we need to go and re-look at booking times or whatever it might be? Are we availing the right therapist to be surfaced in the booking calendar at the right time? The one thing that we found really fundamental, especially if you do go through a platform migration, I can't emphasize this enough, is change management. So the change management process that we underwent, it wasn't as we were ready to migrate and then just spring this new system and say, hey guys, this is now how you're going to have your bookings coming in and pre-purchases coming in. It was really right at the very beginning. So as we knew we're embarking, engaging the network on, this is what we've heard from you, this is what we're changing, come back to us if you don't agree, and which we let them come back to us on. And we made sure they fed back through to us as we were building and iterating. And then on top of that, change management internally to make sure that the functional support office teams that work with the clinic network on a day-to-day, they understood what's changing in the ecosystem and what steps need to be taken. And of course, I can't forget the end user clients. Even change management began for the clients. You need to make sure that your clients know, hey, you're going to have to reset your password. You're going to have to trust this email when it comes through that it's actually us and it's not, spam coming through to steal your data. So I think that was really fundamental for us. And I think one of the things that was really evident as we did get that feedback loop is there were some underlying themes that came through from the network that were really consistent with the end user feedback. So that friction was visible on both sides. And when you listen to both sides, you're able to unlock it and create a better user experience in which your network is happy and your end client is happy. So I think one of the things that we're able to do in that regard is we had this almost reputation to say, hey, it's really confusing your price structure and you've got bundles and then you've got something on sale and we don't know which is the best value for us as a client. And concurrently, the clinics are saying to us, the clients keep purchasing the wrong treatments or they're booking the wrong treatments. So as we designed these journeys, whether they're booking, whether they're buying, whether they've got this merge cart scenario, we tried to build a structure that if I select a single treatment, there's a bundle available, you're going to serve me that bundle, but you're going to make sure that if the single treatment's on sale, you're not going to serve me the bundle because the bundle is going to be more expensive. So I think it was just all those elements that helped us to design a journey that met both client and clinic.
That's amazing. Also from a data perspective, and maybe Chris, kind of like a data question to you, as we were already sort of starting to talk about omnichannel, how do you have the right data per channel that doesn't just help you drive towards like a conversion, but how do you design the digital experience around kind of like the different channels and how do you serve your customers best?
Yeah, it's hard. And I think, again, somewhere where people make a mistake is they think they need to have the perfect data to be able to make investment anywhere, right? Whereas in order to make investment into something along the customer journey, you really do have to understand that whole funnel mentality of where the consideration is, where the awareness is, all the way to conversion. And again, it's, we don't have the best way to be able to track the analytics necessarily for that. We rely on third parties. It's something that we're actually investing in right now to be able to accelerate. However, what I'll say is once you do have that data to understand where they're doing their awareness consideration, that's where you can really make the investment to make an impact. So to give you an example, we are in the process of launching on the TikTok shop. Now, there was an internal debate on should we be on the TikTok shop because we're $400 to $700 blenders, who's going to spend that kind of money on the TikTok shop? Now, the argument is success doesn't look like conversion on the TikTok shop. TikTok shop is, from a consideration and awareness standpoint, they're the biggest beasts in the game in our business. So really based on that, success would ultimately look like pull through to Amazon, pull through to D2C to be able to grow those channels. So we're making that investment more so in the upper funnel to achieve success in the bottom of the funnel, right? And we're seeing that in B2B as well. We're seeing people, I've been talking to agencies who have a lot of clients in the B2B side. They're saying that launching on Amazon for B2B companies is more of a marketing play, investing in Amazon. What they mean by that is by launching on Amazon, they're not exactly achieving sales on that channel, but they're seeing pull through to distribution. Now, I was questioning that because that's hard to track and measure, but this person who was telling me that did come with receipts. So it was just very interesting to see that just there's channels that you'll think would be like the bottom of the funnel channels that are essentially more top funnel channels and vice versa. So that's why it's really important to understand the journey and which channels specifically are your conversion channels versus your awareness channels.
Okay, Jared, and this question goes to all of you, but we'll start with you. So you've already talked about how the bots are going to take over the world and everything. So AI is obviously
not gonna steal.
coming up quite a bit, and everybody is having this kind of like glorious and romantic notion of better personalization and better recommendations and things of that nature. But I think some e-com platforms don't have that like 360-degree view of the customer. I'm just trying to figure out like how can you help merchants either on the B2C side or even on the B2B side? How can you help merchants to understand what the real buyer journey should really look like? How do you help them design that? And what kind of like fundamental data, I guess, frameworks do you have to put into place to even support that? So kind of like a loaded question, but I know you got it.
There's a couple there. So I think, first of all, and kind of going off the last question and Chris's, thoughts there, is the unsexy part of things is what's going to deliver the sexy results. Data is next to godliness in our perspective. It is not cool. It is not flashy. But it is going to feed your insights. It's going to feed your experiences. Oftentimes I talk to our customers and I say, don't let your ego get in the way. Don't let my ego go the way. Although I think I'm awesome. We're running $5 billion. Like, we're great. We know we'll save you. No. The data should dictate our decisions. And when we are being approached, and I'm sure all of you are being told, do something with AI. You have to do AI, or otherwise we're going to find someone else that's going to enable AI. The first step in our perspective there is to get your data right. So if you want to leverage AI or improve your experiences, that should be data backed. These AI ingestion engines are only as good as the data is coming, and oftentimes we are building experiences around these bots, these contextual search engines. But where we always get stuck is people want to jump to the finish line. But we dig into it, and there's inconsistent product data. Really, they shouldn't be talking to us about AI. They should be talking about data projects or going and talk to our friends at Akinio or any other PIM to sort of fortify their data structures before we even sort of start this journey. So I know that wasn't exactly the answer, but I think data is ultimately the key to everything that we've talked about.
How about you, Chris, Zoe?
Can I just say agreed? No, I think the biggest point that you made there is the fact that data needs to drive decision making. So there's nothing that if you're doing something without data, it's essentially just a science project, right? Not only that, it needs to have a measurable outcome. You need to be able to improve operational efficiency or solve a business problem, right? So you can't do any of that without data to back it up that you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, or to be able to just get to that point in the first place.
At risk of echoing that sentiment, absolutely. Ourselves, we're early in our agentic journey, I think I would say. So we've moved from an inflexible system to a flexible system that's ready for scaling. And I would say for the last at least 12 months, we've been on a data cleanse pathway, knowing where we want to get to. We're nearly there, and we've even had proof of concepts presented to us for agentic experiences, and we've put the brakes on because we know that there's a few fundamentals we've got to get right on the data front. If we don't have those customer profiles completely in order, well, they're not going to get that fantastic personalized experience, are they? So, I agree, it doesn't sound particularly exciting. It's laborious, but once done, hugely fruitful. So watch this space, nearly there.
I know we're at time, but we're just gonna do like a little quick fire round. And we'll start with you because you just said kind of like pumping the brakes. What is something that you've invested in that you were so passionate about and you thought you were right, but the moment your users kind of like used it, they were like, you were dead wrong?
I think back to, it was like early conversational commerce. I think what we thought we could do back then, sort of ingesting documentation and sort of feeding out short responses and answers. We thought, hey, this is going to be so, exceptional and groundbreaking for our users, but it wasn't 100% perfect. It was finding content on the World Wide Web versus our training material, and it created a lot of friction for both clients and therapists alike. So I think that's sort of why we've met the next phase of agentic with trepidation, to make sure that, hey, let's get the fundamentals in place, let's get the guardrails in place, and make sure the profiles are in order. So didn't quite land how we thought it would.
Chris?
Yeah, so this is more B2C specific, but I would say we invested heavily in demand generation for Amazon, only to have 3P sellers on the buy box and essentially steal the sale. So it's like we're paying for the customer, we achieved the customer, and then somebody's coming in at the checkout line and saying, no, come to me, and we're losing them. So that's always fun.
Jared, anything that you've seen with the customers you're working with?
Every single mistake we've ever made has come from trying to follow the latest trend, whether that's AI, following the pack, whether that's overinvestment on our clients' behalf in Snapchat. No dislove to Snapchat. You guys are great. But we everything we've done is trying to follow the leader. And whenever that is deployed, we are each unique, beautiful businesses, and we do have independent thought. So I would always suggest don't be the first mover, but also don't be the person just following the initial trend there.
The metaverse, did you hit up the metaverse?
Oh God, yeah, I have a couple very large houses in the metaverse. I don't, guys. I'm not that stupid.
I didn't pick you for that kind of like non-believer. Did you sell all of your NFTs too? Okay, last fire round question here. What's the one piece of friction that you would want to remove right now from your funnel?
I can start. Mine would be operational. I look at the experience from true client centricity. So when you go with one of the largest clinic chains in market, you would expect if you buy a package of 5 laser hair removals that you could go and use your package at any clinic that's nearby. Unfortunately, we're a franchise network, which means, no, I purchased from X clinic, I've got to redeem at Y clinic. So to create a really great online or omni-channel experience, I would love to sort of unblock that so we could have a more seamless digital experience, but operationally constrained, I would say.
Yeah, for us, it's the customer experience. I mean, you wouldn't think it. You'd think blenders are simple, right? But we have so many different blenders, so many different models that people are very, very confused when they go to our website, to the point where they just leave and go buy on Amazon. So being able to simplify that and simplify the journey in general and, feed them information through personalization would be the best way to solve that.
Circling all the way back to one of my first comments, a little different, but I'm a cultural crusade to make friends with every single old school industrial manufacturer seller. Technology is your friend, and if we could break through that, honestly, the customers would have a far more seamless buying experience. But that's all. Oftentimes, the biggest blocker is this damn adoption curve. So,
okay, awesome. Well, thank you for bearing with us. I just wanted to get these quick fire rounds in. I just loved this conversation. Thank you for being on stage. Give them a round of applause.